Okay, today we're going to talk about uniforms, where the patches go, insignias that you can wear, what you can't wear, and how to attach them to uniform in a pretty easy way that's appropriate and consistent with BSA guidelines. To do that, we're going to use a document that BSA has published. It's a little bit older document than what's out now, and this is available on the website. It gives a pretty clear description of the type of items that you'll have on your uniform, where they go, and a very clear description of how to apply them. Alright, so we have three varieties of shirts here. These two are youth shirts. This is the traditional classic style, the heavier material, the more traditional material. This is the newer design that has just recently been introduced into the Boy Scouts of America. This is an adult uniform of the classic style, and this is an adult uniform of the new material and the new design from BSA. The major differences between the classic design and the new design are that the pockets are pointed or chevron on the classic uniform, and on the new uniform the pockets are square across the bottom and are actually bellowed, meaning that they're much larger. There are no more buttons as far as the flaps for the pockets. It's actually a Velcro, but there's still a button on the inside, and we'll explain what that's for later. Another feature of the new uniforms that was not available on the old uniforms is the addition of a sleeve pocket that was added to the new uniform design. Again, bellowed on the bottom with Velcro on the top, and allows for items to be placed on the sleeve pocket. This material is designed to dry quickly and to expel sweat and moisture from the material much faster than the traditional material. And it also has a slightly different button design, light instead of dark. Whether you decide to go with the classic design or the new updated design is really just a personal preference. A few things that are minor differences. The uniform lettering on the traditional classic design is actually stitched, embroidered, and sewn to the uniform. The application of the lettering on the new uniform is actually like a heat transfer applique, and there have been instances in the initial uniform batches where these have actually started to come off individually, where you'll have a lack of consistency there. So I'm sure that they're correcting that situation, but some of the early uniforms had problems with these letters coming off. You would not have any issues with these because it's embroidered and stitched onto the uniform. Now here's two different council patches. This is the standard traditional Central Florida council patch here. This one is a character partner, which was available through donations through Boy Scouts of America. Clearly that the shapes are different, the edge of the top edge radius is different, and that's going to create a little bit of variation in the way that it's applied to the shoulder of the uniform. One of the challenges with the new uniforms, as you can tell, is that it's a very small, tight space between the bottom of this patch and the top of the pocket. We had to do some modifications to the numerals, cutting the bottoms and the tops, and actually stitching them underneath slightly the shoulder patch in order to make everything fit in the space available. Please be aware of that whenever you get one of these more unique shoulder patches, that if it's larger than the standard shoulder patch, you're going to have some issues with the numerals underneath. What we tend to do with our numerals, if they're not sewn into one giant patch, is we tend to stitch them to each other first, so that you at least have them aligned properly with each other, and then stitch across the top, stitch across the sides, stitch through the center, and then at last stitch through the bottom. One of the ways you can make sure that your shoulder patch is nice and clean and looks very consistent is to start with the top edge. If you start with the top edge of the seam and sew the top edge of the patch to the seam from the center out, working your way outwards, staying with the seam, it's actually going to come out and be in a nice contour. It's also going to flex the patch because of the natural arc of the seam, and it's going to force that to roll around your shoulder whenever you have it finished and you're actually wearing the uniform. If you do this, the patch will roll around the shoulder and allow the sleeve to conform to your shoulder much better. It also looks much nicer on the uniform without having any type of an edge. This particular patch on this uniform was difficult to try to get that effect, so there is going to be a little bit of a gap here, but you can see the difference between this patch here laying flat and this patch here across the seam that actually has a nice curve to it. And again, it looks much cleaner, and it covers up that seam so there's not any gap between the top of the patch and the seam. Again, a personal preference, not anything required by the council, but it does make the uniform look very nice. As you can see on all three of these uniforms, I've not done one on my new uniform yet, is the World Crest. Now what's listed here, World Crest, cloth number 00143, centered horizontally over left pocket. That basically just means you want to get it right dead center with the, if you're using the traditional uniform, dead center with the buttonhole, or dead center with the bottom of the chevron if you don't have the buttonhole on the new uniform. And vertically between the left shoulder seam and top of pocket. So what that means is this is going to be a variable type of measurement. You're going to look for the top seam, you're going to look for the top of the pocket, and you're going to want to get that centered between those two spots on the uniform. Now, if like myself, I'm fairly short from my shoulder to my waist, you may want to adjust the position so that it looks more natural rather than being, if it's perfectly centered and it's under the lapel or it seems canted or angled because of your body structure, you certainly can move it down as necessary. The important thing to remember is that there are emblems that go underneath the World Crest as you go through your career in scouting. So you want to make sure you leave room for emblems underneath, such as the unit service badges, the yearly service badges, as well as any insignia and recognition that you receive.